Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good night. Basically, welcome to the Graduate Show. Today is the 7th of March, which must make tomorrow the 8th. But it's also Pancake Day, a traditional celebration for tossers everywhere. Today is also the feasts of St. Petunia and Felicity, two Christian martyrs who died on this day in the year 203. They are believed to have been put to death for their faith in the Roman province of Africa, in the city of Carthage, which is now in modern-day Tunisia, and they use the term modern in its loosest possible sense. Sometime later, after the Romans had moved on to Christianity, Carthage was captured by the Vandal tribe, who, after taking control of the Mediterranean, laid siege and sacked Rome in 455. It was the Vandals' destruction and careless disregard for much of the city's artwork that led to the term vandalism. Destruction and disregard for art? Sounds like somebody I know. Of course, I'm talking about the cuts to funding for British art. But why not cut the funding? I'll tell you why. Ed Vasey, who this week, when asked what was being done to ensure that cutting the art and film funds would not damage the British arts culture, replied, "This is incredibly frustrating. It kind of implies that this is an intentional thing on our part, which is ridiculous. We're in an economic crisis." Very observant, Mr. Vasey. Top marks. Oh, by the way, it is intentional unless you accidentally signed away 29.5% of the funding. Personally desirable? Maybe not, but intent nonetheless. I now give you 4 reasons why it's a bad idea to sign away the funding. A. It's the only thing we're any good at. B. It returns a huge amount of money into the British economy. C. It directly affects me, and you've made yourself a very dangerous enemy. I intend to bring about the destruction of your puny government through the regular broadcasts of contemptuous comments. Or D. All of the above. After the collapse of the Roman Empire, Carthage and much of North Africa came under Islamic rule. Carthage was destroyed and the city of Tunis built. It's interesting how it goes around in cycles, and that North African Mediterranean coast should repeatedly be the location for religious and political upheaval. It's almost as though the land was somehow intrinsically valuable. I don't know, as if they had some vast supply of natural resources and ideal trading links with the rest of Europe. I don't know. But I wonder if the coalition has thought about getting involved in the current uprisings there. Not in an armed forces sort of way. That's far too risky. Look what happened in Iraq. Better leave that sort of stuff to the United Nations. But maybe we could just sell them weapons, and that way they could destroy themselves and leave all the profits for us. Great work, boys. I was beginning to lose faith. Let's hope that all of their schemes, that may at first glance appear as simple, pig-headed incompetency and sheer stupidity, are actually this well thought out. All of these factors, and probably a few more, have for centuries made North Africa the ideal breeding ground for power-hungry men with a complete disregard for human rights. We've received a letter here at the Graduate Show, which is unusual. It's not unusual that somebody would want to send us a letter, it's just unusual that a letter was sent and it actually got delivered. It's not all Facebook comments, you know. Here we get these letters, and this week it's from Mr. MP Critics of Chesterton Road, South Gloucester. He writes, "Dear Sirs, I'm furious with all that's gone on this week. The continuing protests and escalating bloodshed in Libya, Nick Clegg taking a beating in the Barnsley Central by-elections, and Britain being the big winner in the yearly entertainment industries, coming out and congratulating each other with solid gold statues in a display that reminds us why people hate the West. I think you'll find it unsurprising, therefore, that I agree with Joanna Lumley." Now, we here at the Graduate Show love Joanna Lumley. We absolutely do. In fact, absolutely fabulous can only be described as, well, actually quite watchable. And all of her activism to help the British Gurkhas, it just adds to the overall nice person feel. And I don't even like them myself, I find them too vinegary. This week, Joanna Lumley stood up and bravely said exactly what we're all thinking in an interview with the perfectly readable Radio Times, stating correctly that nowadays children find it laughably amusing to shoplift and steal, and that there was only one crime during the whole time that she was at school when a fountain pen went missing. Stealing just didn't happen. Well, I personally think somebody remembers the fountain pen incident just a little bit too well. I wonder whether this incident occurred during her time at the unruly-sounding St Mary's Convent School in St Leonards-upon-Sea. She also appears ignorant of the fact that when missing and stolen are not quite alike. Anyway, he continues. Let me just say in agreement with Miss Lumley that theft definitely wasn't invented as a concept until at least late 1968, because our generation was definitely raised in a utopic haze of politeness, respect and love, where our TV shows consisted of a monotone, respectable man reading Bible stories aloud. Not like this modern rubbish, it's all just rude words and sneering undertones of sarcasm. Our world, where twopence could buy you a bag of chips, 2 puppies and a dashing new hat, and you'd still have change for the bus ride home. See, that's the problem with the young people, isn't it? No respect for people from our generation, where lawlessness was of our class, you know? People like Peter Sutcliffe and Charles Bronson, Ian Bradley, Myra Henley, you know? These shoplifters and the hoodies, I mean, it's a real and worrying threat, isn't it? You know what I mean? This is modern Britain. And here, in quiet and leafy suburbia, a daring new experiment is being carried out by some of the coalition's top scientists to give young people in Britain some of the same opportunities as children in third world countries, where, suffering from the effects of famine and disease, children seem far more responsive to authority. Social workers are working closely alongside Miss Lumley, following advice that in Ethiopia you might find a 7-year-old expected to take 15 goats out into the fields all day with only a chapati to eat and his whistle. Why are we so afraid to give our children the same responsibilities? Why? Why indeed? With me to discuss the matter further is Professor and Honorary Labour Peer, Sir Arthur Winston Manson. I'll tell you why. Because giving a troubled kid in the middle of Manchester or Liverpool 15 goats and a whistle will only ever end badly. Besides, they'd probably be lynched, considered far too middle class, wandering around with a chapati in a land where the burger bun still rules. This is just another example by past generations who confuse cause and effect.
I have lost count of the number of times that I've been chastised for my decision to be born just before an economic recession, meaning that I will suffer the consequences by the time that I want to go to university. It's my belief that if young people today are rude and uneducated, it is because the education system has failed them.
I'm more than happy to shoulder some of the responsibilities, but this is the situation we find ourselves in, and you young people just have to make the best of it. Yours sincerely, etc., etc., Mr. MP Critics. Well, interesting stuff, but I can't help but wonder, when you're heading to the grave, you don't blame the hearse. Is the world today a product of past generations like Miss Lumley's? And if we're going to change this country for the better, it's about time we all took some responsibility for it, which is why I'm proposing the big social order. Want to stop shoplifting? Employ shoplifters at the supermarket. Let's let criminals run the prisons, and you'd see a dramatic decrease in reoffenders. If we want to reduce the number of unemployed, let's hire drug addicts to kill the unemployed, thus reducing the costs of both rehab and state benefit. We can entice boring, normal people away from worthless jobs in education and health by insisting on an unmanageable level of self-administration and countless hours of paperwork instead of the jobs they're actually intended to do, and encourage them into more lucrative and money-greedy vocations such as investment banking and conservative MPanisms. So until next time, sleep tight if you can, and good night.